Let's talk about part 1, the events of the Old Testament. The first song is I'll Make Me a Man. When I enrolled to study vocal music at the University of the District of Columbia, the curriculum was structured so that students will have the ability to sing in various languages, styles, and techniques. In particular, one of the techniques used in many operas is called a recitative, an Italian style of singing used in operas and oratorios. It is considered speech singing with dramatic inserts of melodic chord structures. Likewise, in this particular song, the framework was set up to begin as a recitative. Once the music begins, there is an ostinato groove found in the bass line that drives throughout the song with syncopated rhythms in the upper part of the accompaniment. Uniquely, this composition tells a vivid story from the creation sermon from James Weldon Johnson's book of poems called God's Trombones. After reviewing this song over and over, I later found inspiration to create a musical dialogue between the voice, the piano, and the percussion. This next song is called Little David, Play on Your Harp. This soothing arrangement puts a smile on my face, and it's very pleasant to hear. The story of David is by far one of the most well-known and highly requested biblical characters to date. Kudos to the piano arrangement for this composition. This concept of playing on a harp without an actual harp? Wow! What a remarkable display in this composition. I can totally envision little David playing on his lyre and dancing around for King Saul. Such a delightful spiritual. This next song, Dry Bones. This song is one of my favorite selections in this collection. The piano accompaniments, frequent melodic and meter changes really build personality to this arrangement. I was most excited to add imitations to the percussion instruments, creating a bone-like sound in order to paint a picture of the bones coming to life and walking around. Although the message is profound, it is simply understood. This song is not only a fun arrangement, but I'm pretty sure that it appeals to both children and enthusiasts of the spirituals. The next song, Didn't My Lord Deliver Daniel? Roland Hayes describes in his interpretation of this song that there was an apparent hopeful character with a feeling of poignant longing. However, I chose to focus more on the observance of God's deliverance in order to answer that question. Did he or did he not deliver? The answer is celebrated in the percussions as a vibrant yes. In the next song called A Witness. A Witness is probably one of the top most popular spirituals found in this collection. Appropriately, this is the perfect follow-up song that reinforces the almighty power of God found in the previous song. Continually, the question that convicts the heart. The singer can also attest to the fact that God is a very present help in the time of trouble. Therefore, he admonishes all who would listen to consider these biblical characters in order to certify or validate God's existence. Ultimately, based on these stories, the charismatic messenger pinnacles with a challenging question that implores you and everyone to become a witness. In this next section, part 2, is the abstractions from the teachings of both the Old and the New Testaments. This first song is called Your Tired Child. Roland Hayes dedicated this song to his mother because he claimed that while he was mourning, he had envisioned a host of angels greeting his mother, and it reminded him of this particular arrangement. He knew that she had worked hard for most of her life. Roland Hayes and the host of angels suggested that she should simply take a moment to sit down and rest a while before celebrating her crossover into the promised land. However, once she realized that she had made it, she couldn't sit down because she was so overjoyed and full of renewed energy, she couldn't sit down. In addition to this wonderful piano accompaniment, the added percussion in order to showcase the excitement that she felt at her crossover is captivating. The next song is called Plenty Good Room. This spiritual is in the same caliber as the other popular spirituals such as Steal Away, Deep River, A Witness, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen. You see, these spirituals are not to be looked at as some depression song, but rather a sense of hope in order to celebrate the coming of the promise. This is to say that the city of heaven is inclusive, but only to those who have been faithful. There's plenty of good room. This next song is called Two Wings. Roland Hayes suggested that this song be approached lightly, as a tiptoe, and as if you are reaching for something that's not quite within reach. However, I place heavy attention to the lyrics, and in doing so, my approach is like a petition or great desire. You see, life can sometimes be overwhelming. Therefore, I want two wings to fly away. Lord, meet me. Take this burden or give me a way out. The next song is called Heaven. The piano arrangement is genius for this song. Imagine, if you will, the lyrics are removed from this song and you're listening to only the music. I envision that the character in this song would be in a daydream and dancing around. The anticipation of having new clothes, as in the robe, permission to enter, as in the shoes or access, and a celebration, the new song. The new song as you enter the promised land. All of this is incorporated in the accompaniment and the song lyrics. I hope you were able to make note of how the word heaven is sung in this arrangement. In many of the Hispanic cultures, the letter V is pronounced as a B. So likewise, I chose to replace the V and use the B in its place so that the word heaven, or hebben, with an extended N on the end, has a deliciousness in its dreamlike state of mind. This next song is very special and unique. Steal Away. While I was studying voice with Charlotte Harleman, she shared with me that this song should be approached with a German S, just as you would if you were singing the Christmas version of Silent Night in German, Stille Nacht. The S would be approached as a sh. Reluctant at first, but then I gave it some thought. And when I tried it, to my surprise, the idea actually turned out to be quite effective, and it serves as a great word painting. The construction of this song originated at a secret gathering place with a whisper. This is to say that one needed to be quiet, shh, in order to steal away. Therefore, my interpretation is to begin the song as the origin story, a spoken whisper. Steal away. Followed by the singing of the word steal away. And at the end of the song, it was intentional for a play on the word long and for cutting off the anticipated last words of the phrase, I ain't got long to stay. In order to show that the character in this song has finally departed. These last two selections in this section were actually the first two selections assigned to me in addition to Little Boy by my voice teacher Nelda Orman. Because of her, these songs are special and dear to me. You must come in by and through the Lamb. I enjoyed the interpretation mentioned by Roland Hayes to say that God was perceived as a fourth dimension. In the first dimension, you can't go over God. In the second dimension, you can't go under God. In the third dimension, you can't go around God. Only one procedure is made in order to get to God. You can only go through the Lamb. Round About the Mountain. This particular song was carefully arranged and dramatized with percussion in order to share the vivid story that originated at the recession for the young woman who had passed away. As her family and friends traveled up and down the Appalachian Mountain, they memorialized and celebrated the fact that God showed mercy and delivered her just before her death. Prospectively, in this context, the word she can also be viewed as God's church. Therefore, the church, his people, were all once sinners. But the message declares that the Lord was merciful to the sinners, and because of his love and mercy, his church shall rise. Here we are in part 3, the life of Christ. This section is from the song cycle, The Life of Christ, and it's chronicled to share the gradual happenings of Jesus' life experience. The first song is called Prepare Me One Body. This spiritual reminds me of 3 specific scriptures that reveal God's action plan to make things better. My first memorized scripture, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. The second was Philippians 2:5-8. Jesus took the form of a servant to be like man, and then to die for us. The third one, John 15:13. Greater love has no one than to give his life for someone else. In this song, Prepare Me One Body, God chose in this likeness to make things right. The next song is called Little Boy. Well, it is rumored that this was a signature song for Roland Hayes. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the dramatic piano accompaniment. This song is arranged and interpreted to showcase the shock and amazement from the lawyers, doctors, and religious scholars, and finally, the authority that Jesus had, even as a little boy. The next song is called Live a Humble. Professor Charlotte Holloman suggested that this song should be approached as a calling on your life, with an urgent message. In this case, the message is about your obedience, opposed to the timid approach that is often misunderstood about humility. The next song is called Hear the Lambs a Crying. The Hebraic minor mode arrangement in this song is a remarkable interpretation of the drama presented here. The message speaks for itself. If you see or hear a problem, let the love in your heart do something about it. But in this context, Christ says, if you love me, feed my sheep. This also shows that when God calls you in your unworthiness, or even when you're faced with overbearing oppositions, He's actually rooting for you. So this last section is part 4, the Passion of our Lord. Modeled after the art song format, Hayes created the Life of Christ song cycle. For this production, I divided panel 3 into 2 separate sections, making 4 parts into the songbook, omitting only 4 songs from this cycle. The first one is called They Led My Lord Away. The somberness of this song reminds me of a suspense movie soundtrack. The concept for the vocal arrangement is to give off the idea of not wanting any harm to happen to your loved one and the desire to see your loved one just one more time before their tragic end. The second song is called He Never Said a Mumbling Word. Just as Hayes stated in his review, this song is a masterwork and one of the most difficult songs I've recorded for this project. However difficult, yet in a live setting, it is also one of the most powerful and most compelling spirituals to touch and move an audience unlike any other spiritual you've heard in this collection. Were you there? Not to be taken literally, but rather a perspective to ponder in order to recall an event that took place. The idea of a modulation in this song is to show progress as an emotional response based on these profound questions. Imagine this dialogue with both Mary and Mary Magdalene. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? All the heads are low and the eyes are shut and full of tears. Were you there when the sun refused to shine? All heads are slightly raised and their eyes are opened and amazed by this wonder. Were you there when God raised him up from the tomb? All heads and eyes are lifted up to the sky in adoration. No, we were not there physically, but if you were to ponder on these questions, it is likely that you'll be able to visualize these historic accounts, the crucifixion, and the powerful effect his death had on the world that the everlasting sun refused to shine. And finally, the resurrection, to be raised from the dead without any human or man-made assistance, making him the true Messiah. This section ends with a song called Did You Hear When Jesus Rose? One of the primary reasons I chose to conclude this production with this song is simply because of the chronological historic accounts and because it best concludes the previous song. The life of Christ began with his birth, his short lifespan, his death, and finally, his resurrection. Therefore, in order to authenticate this story, I felt it was necessary to end this production with added percussions in order to respond to this question and to celebrate his resurrection.